That's right, the person right there is openly defending Sharia law. Okay, before I start, I've got to say, sorry, I don't have a good voice for presentation, but it's the only one I've got, so we'll have to work with it, okay? So this video is about a certain group of people who will say they'll stand up for women's rights, they'll stand up for gay rights, they'll stand up for basic human rights, they'll stand up against Christianity when they shit on these rights, but when it comes to Islam, they'll just bend right over. So why is that? And how is Sharia law not horrible? Do they even know what it is? Also, what exactly is Aboriginal law? And what does it have to do with any of this? Well, hopefully we'll find that out as we go through some footage. So, if you're familiar with the type of people who hang out on Tumblr, and you notice the hipster clothes in the background and the blue hair dye, then you probably have a good idea of what we're in for. So why are they angry? Well, these kinds of people are always angry at something, and this time they're angry at a group called Reclaim Australia, in this case for protesting Sharia law. Now you're probably thinking, wait a minute, Sharia law is fucking horrible, shouldn't any decent person be opposed to it? Well, you'd be right, but you're not a social justice warrior. Yeah, that's right, we've got them in Australia too, they tend to hang around Melbourne. But before we take a look at them, let's have a look at Reclaim Australia, because there are problems here. Not with their main ideals, just little things.
Aussie, Aussie, Aussie! Aussie! Aussie, Aussie!
So I agree with opposing Islamic law and Sharia practices like halal certification. Those are good things to stand for, but chanting Aussie, Aussie, Aussie and wearing the Australian flag, these things don't really help anyone. They're sports activities. They're viewed as anti-intellectual. Don't get me wrong, there's nothing wrong with patriotism, but it's a lot easier for people to paint you in a negative light when you look and act like a sports crowd. You're giving your enemies ammunition, you're loading their gun and you're aiming it for them when you do this. So that and the sort of right-wing mentality with this movement is just going to end up scaring some people off. You're not going to get all the gay rights activists and the atheists if you have this sort of image. And I understand the frustration with the left wing, but these Islam sympathisers, they're a special type of lefty and a special type of crazy. I lean to the left, standing up against Islam and against the misogyny, homophobia and violence. These are all progressive, liberal values, and it's a shame these hipsters can't see that.
Did you see the Muslim land? Just last week, they had a 12-year-old bride. A 12-year-old bride. Do you want that to be legal here?
Oh, it's ridiculous.
Do you want that to be legal here?
Have you had a pedophilia in the church?
So this lady's got the right idea, she's dressed smart, she's being civil, and she even does it with a smile on her face. It'd be easier for people to get behind this movement if more people acted like this. And of course the old Islam supporter throws out the red herring, have you heard of pedophilia in the church? As if that somehow negates the fucking concerns. So, Muslim pedophiles and rape gangs in the UK? Don't worry about them. Look over there at the Catholic Church. It's not like we should be dealing with both of them. Okay, this guy. Look at him. He does not give a fuck. I sort of like his singlet, but the problem is, he looks intentionally intimidating. And there's some more people like him in the rallies too, you know, just sort of rough looking. While I was researching this, I saw some interesting Facebook comments. Some people said they wanted to support the rally, but they were gay men and thought maybe they might not be welcome because of characters like this guy. And I'm not even saying this guy hates gays, it's just sort of contributing to an image problem that will probably scare a couple of people off, you know, potential supporters for your cause. By the way, I stole that last shot from Atheism is Unstoppable's video. I mention him because he does a really good analysis on Reclaim Australia that you might want to check out. So that's Reclaim Australia. Now let's move on to these tolerant progressives.
No pride in genocide! No pride in genocide! No pride in genocide! No pride in genocide!
Yeah, fucking burn it! Burn our flag, aye! What scum, what absolute scum. This group call themselves No Room for Racism. And nothing says you're against racism like burning an Australian flag. Now you might think that burning your country's flag isn't very progressive, but this is just part of New Age progress. See, these are the rules of being progressive now. Number 1, fuck whitey, because remember, white people are to blame for absolutely everything. Number 2, fuck Western culture and democracy, very important. And number 3, minorities can do no wrong. That's why these people can burn the Australian flag, because you see they're like 2% Aboriginal. And if you have a problem with that, then you're a racist.
Like I said, you can't reclaim a country that was never yours in the first place! You tell him that! Shame!
The point of those Reclaim Australia rallies is to reject horrible Islamic ideas. That's it. I agree that it's a bad name, but you're trying to make this about Aboriginals when it has nothing to do with that. You're bringing up something that happened hundreds of years ago, which no one who's alive today was even a part of, and you're saying no one else should get a say because it's Aboriginal land and Aboriginals need to call the shots. There were Aboriginals at the Reclaim rallies. You're acting like Aboriginals are one big hive mind. They're not. Also, you're mostly white, so does that mean you get like 2% of a say?
The fact that they can mobilise to eject a law, a Sharia law.
Okay, so back to this again. Firstly, the word you're looking for is mobilise. If they immobilised, it would mean they're stopping themselves from moving. Secondly, it's Sharia law, not Sharia law. It's so clear that you have no idea what you're talking about. Do you think you'd have the freedom to do all this shit under Sharia law? There's no way. You're out of your mind. The clothes you're wearing alone could get you killed under Sharia law. You'd either be dead or living in fear and paying the jizya. That is the tax that non-Muslims pay to stay alive. And if you can't pay it, they kill you.
When their law isn't even accepted by the originals of Australia. We have our own law here. Aboriginal law.
Oh yeah, bring back tribal punishment. Basically, Aboriginal law is not as solid a law system as she seems to think it is. In theory, it's still better than Sharia law, I'll give her that, but saying we have Aboriginal law, which is retarded, and using it as justification for Sharia, I don't even think I need to say anything. Just fucking stupid.
We guards and hold your line! We guards and hold your line!
Yes, that's right, that feral, unwashed monkey in hipster clothing just picked up a fresh pile of horse shit and threw it at people. Ah, so much progress. So tolerant. And did you see that other hipster faggot disrupting police horses? His hand was covered in horse shit for obvious reasons, and he just wiped it on the horse. One thing you'll start to notice about these people is they have no idea how to protest without acting like animals. So what No Room for Racism planned to do from the start was block off the entrance to these people's protest and assault them when they tried to get to where they were going. What could go wrong? The Reclaim protest was an organised event approved by the police. These people showing up and illegally blocking the entrance was not approved by the police. These people were clearly in the wrong. They could have stood in their own space and protested peacefully. They could have respected free speech, but they didn't. So what do you think happened next? They're not your streets, you fucking morons. It's a public place. This is a free country. You can't forcefully stop people from getting past you and attending a public event. You don't have the right to force people to do anything. So say you're on your way maybe to see some friends. You're walking down the street and some hipster douchebag, some piece of shit starts getting in your way, pushing you whenever you try to pass him and laughing. You would have to be a saint not to get very fucking angry. Again, these people have no idea how to protest. So, here we have another scuffle, and the first thing we notice, we have a woman in an Australian flag screaming, she's being hit and grabbed, her hair's being pulled, and she's trying to get away, but they're not letting go. Anyway, eventually the guy with a red shirt frees her. Now you can see there's fighting, there's shitty behaviour and violence on both sides. But the behaviour of No Room for Racism is particularly disgusting, and I want to highlight this. Now when we see this woman again, she's fighting with that rat wearing the blue jacket who we saw blocking people's paths earlier. Now, I don't know what happened when they went off camera, and it's clear I hate one group more than the other, so I'm going to give the social justice warriors the benefit of the doubt in this case, and assume the elderly woman got angry and came back at her. Even so, clawing at that woman's arm when she tries to get away is disgraceful. This is a propaganda image from Reclaim Australia I found. I'm guessing this is the same woman's arm from afterwards. It might be a different woman, but either way, not on.
What's your message? Hey? I've got an internet block.
No room for racism.
No what?
No room for racism.
Pardon?
So, no room for racism.
No referee?
No. Referees are welcome.
Referees?
Welcome, racists are not.
Alright, sweet. Did you do that sign?
that?
Did you make that song?
No, I didn't. It was given to me.
Oh, who gave it to you?
Somebody from
Do you know what it means?
that?
You know what it means?
Yep.
Yep.
What does it mean? Sorry.
This guy has no idea why he's here or what he's protesting. They're just using him to hold the sign. Okay, let's have a look at some interviews with these tolerant progressives. One of them has to be able to explain their cause properly.
The divisions, the divide and rule that the government do to control people, and the government are fearmongers. They're just fearmongers. You won't hear anything about the Herald scum, about what's good going on in blackfellow communities anywhere. You get my... Why don't they want to put in the truth about what's happening? The Muslims have never told us how to speak or, do whatever.
Well, that's because you don't talk about their religion. You probably don't even know that Muslims belong to a religion. We are repeatedly told by Muslims that we can't criticize Islam. If you do, they'll call you an Islamophobe, which is a stupid made-up word that means nothing, a racist, or any other pathetic buzzword that can be used to silence people. An overwhelming majority of Muslims want to ban criticism of Islam. So in my experience, they absolutely tell me how to speak. Anyway.
No other race has told us what to do. The only race has told us what to do, and it's been racism, is this government.
The government is now a race. So guys, please stop being racist. Don't criticize the government. Be progressive.
The government since the bloody referendum or whatever. And we don't want to be in the Constitution. We don't want to be in any white Australian policy constitution.
Okay, we're getting a bit off track here. I don't think this has anything to do with Islam. In fact, I don't think this guy knows anything about Islam.
This government is illegal.
I don't think this guy's going to be able to explain no room for racism to us.
A rolling stone, and down every road they go, we one more city.
Yep, I don't think we're getting anywhere with this guy. Next.
This is the biggest racist protest that's happened in Melbourne for decades.
Oh god, these people think Islam is a race too. On a world map, could you point me to the native homelands of the Muslim race? Islamistan? I'm having trouble finding it.
Basically, the fascists of Reclaim Australia, there's about 100 of them in up on Federation Square.
Racist, fascist, Islamophobe. Instead of using buzzwords and labels, would you like to actually refute the things they're saying about Islam? Or maybe explain why exactly you think we shouldn't oppose Islamic law?
We have managed to block 2 of the access sites, so we've actually blocked them in and actually stopped more of the fascists going in there.
Yeah, fuck freedom of speech. These people we disagree with, we've violated their rights and blocked them off from a public event, and we're proud of that.
Because racism is wrong, because we're all the same underneath our skin. We have the same thoughts and feelings and emotions. We just come from different places and have different outward appearances.
Racism again. These people really think Muslims are a race. Not one thing said about Islam, just more of the same bullshit rhetoric. And the cognitive dissonance here is amazing. I love how these people scream, you can't stereotype a whole group of people, and then do exactly that. Yeah, all these people criticising Islam, they're all a bunch of racists. Don't let them speak.
I think Australia has a serious problem with racism, and this is just the ugly blooming of it.
And again, it's racist to criticise Islam? Are you opposed to violence, enslavement, misogyny, pedophilia, homophobia, tyranny? Then you're a racist.
I'm here today to
She could eat an apple through a tennis racket.
protest against how racists try to legalize their actions.
Racism again. Yeah, those racist actions. Organising protests for free speech, criticising Islam, having guest speakers. Pretty scary stuff. That shit needs to be illegal.
Racism has no place in Australia, and racism needs to go.
You need to go back to the ocean, Tumbler land whale.
We need to indicate as strongly as we possibly can that the Melbourne people are opposed to racism, opposed to any development of any far-right groups.
Okay, hold on. You guys are incredibly far left, right? You're basically so far left that you're off the fucking political spectrum, and you think that your equivalent opposition shouldn't have a right to exist. Holy shit! I disagree with far-right ideas, but I don't think the far-right should be destroyed and silenced. How hypocritical. I respect their right to have their say for the same reason I respect your right to have your say, even though I think you're a nutbag. If you're against the far-right, good, that's fine. Then you should protest those ideas peacefully without stepping on others' rights. If you want to protest racism, that's good too. It'd be nice if you had an actual case of racism to protest, but whatever. You have the right to label everyone with your stupid buzzwords too. But you don't have the right to get in people's way and assault them. Quite frankly, your silencing tactics are fucked.
I'm a Muslim and I'm a woman.
Ah, unlucky. That's an unfortunate combination.
And I'm a doctor, and women have rights just as much as anyone else does. Stop blaming cultural problems on Islam.
Yeah, so when Islam dictates that men are in charge of women because Allah declares that one is made superior to the other and that it's perfectly acceptable to beat them, or that women who commit unlawful sexual acts are to be locked in their homes till they die, or that a woman is only worth half a man and is likely stupid and forgetful, or that any other of the many misogynistic teachings in Islam are okay, are halal, surely you can't blame these cultural problems on Islam. It's everybody else who's the problem.
They claim that they're concerned about gender equality.
Yeah, what a joke, because as we know, Muslims are well known for their strong stance on gender equality. And don't get me started on their passion for freedom and gay rights. You just can't shut them up.
Which is, and they seem to be trying to imply with their placards that only Muslims assault women.
No, but only in Islam is it perfectly acceptable to assault women.
These people want to pretend they care about women's rights. Actually, these people support wars which are about massacring people all throughout the Middle East, including women. It's disgusting they want to pretend they care about women's rights when they support actually ruining women's lives.
Well, you don't know what the people in the rally really support. But as for me, I support bombing the shit out of ISIS. These psychopaths aren't going to stop raping and killing all non-Muslims and every Muslim who's not their particular type of Sunni Muslim ever. They want to dominate, so the only way to prevent the killing is to fight back against them.
Well, we were holding a blockade against the Reclaim Australia rally. The police line behind us were pushing us forward. Horses came in from the front and people were getting crushed. There's a woman over there who was pulled under the crowd by the police and on the ground. We managed to get her out, but she's now being tended to by paramedics.
Yeah, I wonder why they'd be pushing you back. Why would they want to separate you from these people? Yeah, it's a real head scratcher, isn't it? Maybe it has something to do with their job and you not protesting properly.
One of the organizers of the anti-fascist demonstration, Mel Gregson, spoke to us from Melbourne, from the middle of the crowd.
People have a right to freedom of speech, but people need to be accountable to what they say.
Oh, get fucked. People have the right to freedom of speech, but this is the main organizer for the protest. She is literally a I respect freedom of speech, but person.
Because essentially the phrase, I'm not being racist, right, but basically means, I'm about to be racist. Please keep any objections to yourself.
Generally, when people say, I respect freedom of speech, but, it means they don't respect freedom of speech. And that's exactly what it means in this case. You're saying you respect freedom of speech unless it's speech you disagree with. Speech you disagree with is the exact kind of free speech that needs protection. And that line, people need to be accountable to what they say, is that what you're doing? Holding them accountable? By shoving them and trying to stop them from attending their own protest? Saying things on social media like, we need to stop Reclaim Australia? Because that seems more like you're trying to silence them entirely. Holding them accountable. These self-righteous special snowflakes seem to think they have some sort of authority over people. They are very anti-free speech.
So we've called on all anti-racists to gather here today to try to occupy Federation Square so the racist Islamophobic Reclaim Australia can't hold their hate rally.
Did you hear that? Can't hold their rally. They want to control people. They don't want the opposition to even have a voice. She also had to throw in racist and Islamophobic. So now that she's called them bad names, she doesn't have to refute their points. She doesn't have to engage in debate. She doesn't have to justify her actions or even say anything of substance because she's labelled them as racist and Islamophobic. Let me tell you something about Islamophobia. It's a magic I win word used for just shutting down all discussion about Islam. It's not a real word, it doesn't mean anything. A phobia is an irrational fear of something. Irrational fear of Islam is an absurd concept. There's nothing irrational about fearing an ideology that has been responsible for the death and suffering of millions upon millions around the world and throughout history since its creation. One that promotes the inhumane treatment and killing of gays, women, children, and all non-Muslims. This Islamophobia crap is the same kind of silencing tactic that was used by primitive Christians who wanted to dominate. Anyone who would speak out against Christianity, they were a witch or a sorcerer, and they needed to be burned. Now we've progressed past that. Christians never invented a stupid buzzword like Christphobia, so Christianity has had to greatly change its tune to fit in with modern Western society. Criticising the bad ideas in religion is how we progress. This is how we got to where we are today. So these people who are trying to stop that, who use this bullshit buzzword, Islamophobia, to defend Islam and its horrible ideas, aren't progressive in the slightest. They're scum.
The main messages of our rally are anti-racism, is that yes, there's problems in Australia, but they're not caused by Muslims or any other ethnic or religious minority. They're caused by the government and their pro-big business policies.
Oh, the government, big business, rich people. Get the fuck out of here with that generic hippie communist garbage. That has nothing to do with Islam. You can't quite blame everything on big business and the government. It's ironic, I saw some no room for racism signs saying, stop scapegoating. How is this bullshit not scapegoating? Hey, is this the government? Destroying Sydney and calling for beheadings because someone in another country criticised their religion? Was big business behind Sydney siege? Was it the government who were planning a terrorist attack last Anzac Day? No, devout followers of Islam were behind these things, not the government. You can't blame the Australian government for the thousands of deaths caused around the world every month in the name of Islam. And people just aren't shocked by these incidents anymore. In fact, we've gotten used to this constant violence because it's Islam. And that's the scary fucking thing. So maybe Islam is in fact largely to blame for these things.
The message of the opponent side, the anti-Muslim rally, they're spreading all sorts of conspiracy theories about halal food.
Are you talking about halal certification being a Sharia practice? Or halal certification bodies in Australia supporting Sharia law and animal cruelty in places like Indonesia, Malaysia and Saudi Arabia? Because all that stuff is, entirely accurate. And that's more than enough for me to boycott halal. Now when she says conspiracy theories, she means to imply that any criticism of halal is all just crazy and inaccurate. But there are a ton of problems with halal certification, and they've been known for a long time. Anyway, that's a separate video.
About a conspiracy to introduce Sharia law, about a conspiracy to ban Easter and Christmas, just crazy out there stuff.
Crazy out there stuff that's happened before and is happening right now, in fact. There are already a ton of Sharia courts in the UK. Now, it's not some secret conspiracy. It's happening out in the open. Muslims are calling for the expansion of Sharia law, and they're not being one bit shy about it. The reason this has been allowed to happen is because there wasn't enough resistance initially. People in the UK thought, yeah, Sharia law, that'll never happen here. They're only just starting to fight back against it now. So there's good reason to oppose Sharia law in Western democratic countries like ours in the UK. Here's an unfortunate fact. When the Muslim population of any country gets too high, it never ends well for non-Muslims. So countries that want to keep their way of life have to be very careful when it comes to the growth of their Muslim population. Look into the history of Islam. It has been very successful in aggressively conquering community after community, civilization after civilization, spreading very fast, killing anyone who gets in its way, and allowing no one to leave the faith. Now look at Lebanon. It used to be a majority Christian country. They were very proud to be tolerant and multicultural. They allowed massive Muslim immigration. But it's not enough for Islam just to coexist. No, the religion of peace has to dominate. Muslims can't respect infidel laws. They must follow Sharia law, the law of Allah. The Muslims took advantage of that country's kind nature. They started pushing for more and more ridiculous special rights, and then they declared jihad. And those tolerant progressives who were initially defending Islam, what do you think happened to them? They got fucking slaughtered. You think jihadis and their supporters give a shit about your tolerance? You think Islam has a place for you if you're a non-Muslim? You're delusional. So yeah, if people don't learn from history, and the Muslim population gets too high in Australia, you can probably forget about Christmas and Easter too. Just saying.
And it would be laughable if it wasn't so dangerous, because we know that when racist and Islamophobic ideas become more prominent in society, that correlates with an increase in hate crimes on the street. And we're already hearing reports of more hate crimes against Muslims, but also other people from the Middle East and other ethnic and religious minorities. And this is unacceptable, so we're here today to rally against racism and to rally against hatred.
Yeah, I think the consequences of not criticising Islam and leaving it unchecked really just crush your bullshit about criticism of Islam causing hate crimes. Her argument basically boils down to, don't tell the truth about Islam because I have this bullshit assumption that talking about Islam in a negative light causes hate crimes. Even if she wasn't full of shit, does she really think this is a legitimate reason to stop opposing Islamic law and to just let Islam be the one ideology that can't be criticised? God, I'm so glad we don't have this problem with criticising Christianity. The main organiser of these protests, everyone.
The problem is the worst.
Why do you think that we're racist?
The worst contingent of the socialist or the progressive side of it, we have to own that. So if someone comes out here and they start talking about how all white people should be killed for whatever reason to give the Aboriginal land back, we kind of have to go, all right, we don't agree, but they're on our side.
Yeah, why is there such a strong anti-white sentiment with your movement? That's not very anti-racist at all. Tumblr seem to really like you guys. Why is that, do you think? Tumblr is basically the parallel horseshoe end to Stormfront. The amount of white and male hatred all throughout that website is phenomenal. This is what people who support your movement were posting. This stuff wasn't even hard to find. I hope you're going to keep your word and own that. And Jew hatred. Now you tell people they can't criticise Islam, but it's fine for you to hate the Jews. Now I'm all for criticising religion, but fuck that's ironic. Oh, look at this one. White-splaining. That's not even a word. That guy browses Tumblr. I guarantee it. This one's my favourite. He defends the burning of the Australian flag, then says, you can't be racist towards white people. And he promotes Amar Rahman, who is an absolute piece of shit and has the most racist, delusional fan base you'll ever see. When the Charlie Hebdo shooting occurred, this guy shit on the murdered victims and everyone standing up in solidarity saying, we're not going to be afraid or cave to terrorists. He thought it'd be a great time to take shots at Je suis Charlie and white people. He thinks he's more oppressed than people who have just been murdered. And yes, Rahman, most French people are white. Congratulations on making such a shallow and irrelevant observation. And yes, their lives do matter, you racist fuck. So yeah, wow, this guy supports the whole Bahar Mustafa, I can't be racist towards whitey cop-out. The I reject the actual definition of racism, so I can substitute my own racist power plus privilege bullshit. Isn't it nice you can just redefine words to avoid all accountability? I didn't murder that guy, because murder is power plus privilege.
In the same way that the people with the swastika tattoos are representative of your lowest common denominator, so you have to own that.
I'm so glad you think that, because now Islam has a lot of owning to do. So when there's mass violence and terrorist attacks all over the world in the name of Islam, because people drew a cartoon, or criticised Islam, or were just guilty of being non-Muslim and existing, Muslims have to own that. When over 80% of Al Jazeera viewers support ISIS, when the overwhelming majority of Muslims around the world want Sharia, Muslims have to own that. The fact that Muhammad was a violent murderous warlord with a child bride, the fact Islam promotes the killing of anyone who tries to escape it, the fact that demanding Muslims fight all non-believers until they submit and pay their don't kill me tax, the jizya, is portrayed as merciful in Islam. Muslims have to own all this. And I wish more of them would actually own these things, instead of always blaming the media for reporting the news, like the media is somehow forcing Muslims to do these horrible things. The reality is mainstream media don't focus on even half the atrocities committed by Islam, because it just happens too often. Maybe you'll see these stories just fly past on a news ticker. That's about it. Now there's also quite a lot No Room for Racism has to own, isn't there? I guess their first fault would be being massive fucking hypocrites. But you know what, let's set up a scoreboard. So at the end of the day, what do Reclaim Australia and No Room for Racism have to own? Well, for Reclaim, they've got to own a couple of guys with Nazi symbols who I'm guessing are quite racist. The fuck off we're full types with some ignorant and questionable attitudes, people stealing other people's signs and banners, people who punch back when assaulted. This guy?
What do you want to see as a result of these rallies?
Well, to bring the white power back to Australia. Bring Australia to the white people of Australia. We don't want all these foreigners coming here. Go back to where you come from.
Don't worry, I'll be dead in a few years. Some dipshit who was wearing a Guy Fawkes mask, he's obviously unaware of the massive joke it's become. And I don't know, people being less than nice.
Seriously, you're an idiot. You're just an idiot.
Okay, so that's the woman we saw get attacked before. Right, so obviously this photo is of a different woman. So there were 2 women attacked, which brings me to no room for racism. You guys have to own attacking women, being massive fucking hypocrites, blatant racists who also childishly try to redefine words, stealing people's signs, flags and hats, flag burning, hatred towards Australia, people who are less than nice, blocking people's paths and assaulting them, being anti-free speech, throwing horse shit. Oh no. Exploiting people, and ultimately defending a horrible law structure and a horrible ideology. So congratulations, No Room, it looks like you guys are in the lead. Well done. In the next few months, Islam is going to be a massive debate topic. It's going to be very important. So like it or not, this is a problem that needs to be talked about. All the information needs to be out on the table, and no one should be denied their say based on bullshit labels. These are the first big anti-Islam protests we've had Australia-wide. Islamic State has declared war against us, and terrorist attacks in the Western world are ramping up as a result. You are going to see more protests like these. And maybe you wouldn't attend a Reclaim rally. Maybe you don't like this guy, or maybe you like me and you think they have some problems with the way they present themselves. But do you want to allow unwashed hipster garbage with these bizarre communist ideas who hate capitalism, who hate democracy, who hate freedom of speech, who can't protest peacefully, to attack and forcefully censor people every time? We can't afford to allow such authoritarian, regressive suppression of information and people's right to hold peaceful protests in a debate like this. And that's why I'm making this video, because my silence is a big thumbs up to these people. I've been bombarded with too much crazy bullshit from these nutjobs who I used to think were on my side, who I used to think were progressive, but they fucking ruin the word progressive. They always try to go for the race angle, even if there isn't one. They're the most racist, bigoted, intolerant people you'll ever meet, and I've had enough of them. So I plan on doing some more stuff on cretins like these, and some informal stuff on Islam. If that sounds good to you, then be patient. Otherwise, thanks for watching and fuck off.